Alrighty, hello everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's just been this nice mass. I don't know, today Father God guided me to a specific father priest today, which I'm really grateful. Gave me some good pointers and good advice. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for all your support, for your prayers, okay? Thank you for praying for me and my daughters. I really appreciate it. Those who send me your kind emails. For real, there's more love than hate, which I'm really grateful, okay? But this one he really wants me to talk about. He's been saying it on during the Mass, which is something that he said he expects better from his own community, Christians, those who are into Bible studies or Bible preaching and stuff like that. He said Islamophobia. So Islamophobia is some type of hatred and jealousy, but it's labeled as Islamophobia because it is targeted for people who are of the Muslim community, who speak Arabic, who are in the Middle East and stuff like that. So he said today that he expects better from those who are not from the Middle East, who are not, that's another form also of the decolonization he keeps talking about, that a lot of Christians, especially those in, not just in the white race, but in other communities where you're expected to preach the right thing, right? Like today, there was a scripture today about how, I think it was Jesus was, like there was this demonic thing saying, oh, you're the Son of God and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, don't quote me on this, but there was a part where Jesus was like, shut up, leave, And the person who had this demonic spirit inside them, evil spirits, but in the Bible it's very clear, demonic, right? Did like a twist or something like that, and the thing was out of them. And then everybody was like, whoa, you can take out demons and stuff like that. So a lot of us, we have that anointed, that authority that comes from God. I mean, this is why Jesus, that was his sacrifice for us to have that connection and that authority with God. This is why he did what he did, and then he resurrected 3 days later so that we can have that forgiveness, compassion, anointing, and and the way that you nurture this is by praying. So a lot of y'all, you're wondering, how can I not be racist anymore? How can I remove this Islamophobia? Because it comes, we're being programmed and conditioned. Like this world is programmed and designed like that, right? And then you have people who grew up like that, kind of being racist and mean towards people, So Islamophobia could be like a range, right? There is people who are racist towards Black people, indigenous communities and stuff like that. But then again, it comes from the root cause of colonialism, which also colonialism comes from a space of hatred, violence, injustice, taking power and putting someone under their dominion, like submissive under them. So this is something that if they're not able to overcome this, then they act, in a very demonic, hateful, sometimes violent, sometimes. And violence does not only counts with physical, it could be with words, it could be emotional.
Just a quick follow-up, because there's also good news. First of all, let the Zios think they've won. Let the little basement dwellers fantasize about marrying one of their IDF calendar girls. Yes, the ICJ did not explicitly call for a ceasefire today. Calling for a ceasefire is reserved for armed conflicts. Calling it a ceasefire explicitly contradicts the right to self-defense. In a genocide, however, you call for an end to all genocidal acts, as they have done. The ICJ enforced Article 2, meaning that Palestinians are a protected people. Any further killing harms a protected people and goes against that ruling. Those are the obligations that the world community needs to take seriously, even if Israel doesn't, which we know Israel is going to ignore this ruling. They are genocidal maniacs. We know that they're going to show up in 4 weeks and spin the yarn again, Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. So yes, While this is a win, we still have work to do. So keep pressuring your governments. We need to make Israel feel isolated and small. They are the abuser in this dynamic, and that is how we handle abusers. Make them feel small, isolate them, revert them back into a pariah state status. That is what we need to do.
When I make statements like white people blink, white liberals always comment going, not all white people. And I just want to show you guys something. These are the 10 countries that just stopped its aid going to Gaza. United States, Germany, Canada, Scotland, Australia, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Switzerland, Italy, Finland. It's not all white people, but somehow it's always white people. So the same day that the UN's court ICJ ruled that Israel needed to stop committing genocide in Gaza, Israel accused UN staff of involvement in the Hamas attacks on October 7th. So immediately after Israel accuses the UNRWA of harboring staff that were involved in the October 7th attacks, all of these white countries come together and they cut off their funding to the UN Relief and Works Agency programs, furthering the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza who are being genocide right now, where no aid is getting into the country. I think about 5 to 10 trucks are getting into Gaza, which is nothing. So they're furthering the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where they are being ethnically cleansed and exterminated. I want to make something extremely clear. Since Israel began committing its genocide on Palestinians in Gaza, they have targeted and carried out airstrikes against UNRWA buildings in Gaza. They have killed at least 152 UN employees. Israel has killed more UN employees than any other nation has during a genocide or conflict or war since the inception of the UN. This is literally the deadliest conflict ever for the UN in such a short period of time. The UNRWA is the primary humanitarian agency in Gaza with over 2 million people depending on it for its sheer survival. Do you guys see what's happening here? Like, these white countries are pissed that South Africa dared to take Israel to international court. Because South Africa didn't just take Israel to international court. They took white supremacy to international court. They took the US and UK and France and all of these other participating countries to court. They took international court to international court in front of all of us. South Africa was a representative of the entire global South. That's what's so monumental about it, is that the entire global South is so over white supremacy. They're so over these Western world powers. And this is the last attempt at white supremacy. And they're pissed about it. They're trying to grasp any power and hold that they can. And right now, they're collectively punishing Palestinians in Gaza because of it. Okay? They are inflicting suffering on Palestinians because they're trying to show the global South, don't you dare try us. They're whipping out their dick in front of us. Do you not see that? They're collectively punishing Palestinians because South Africa dared to challenge white supremacy. If you as a white person feel like you are in allyship with people of color, but you cannot see how white supremacy still exists and how white supremacy seeps into every aspect of our lives, how we have never recovered from colonization, how Black people have never recovered from slavery. If you cannot see that, then you are not truly an ally to us. You are part of the problem.
As someone who grew up in so-called Israel, is a Jewish from a mixed family of Arab Jews and Holocaust survivors from Europe, I think I have quite good insight into the mind of most Israelis, into the deep system of indoctrination that most Israelis go through throughout their lifetime. We never learn in school, in history, the real history of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. Until I was in my mid-20s, late 20s even, I had no idea that in 48, 750,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their land and home. I had no idea. Can you imagine? A whole state has been built on top of indigenous people, and I had no idea. And then you grow up and you go to the mandatory service in the IOF, in the Israeli occupation forces. And that's an even stronger system of indoctrination, because you learned not only the skewed history that you've learned your entire life, but also makes you complicit in that, which becomes much, much harder to later on decolonize your mind and heart and get away from that system. It took me years, a lot of reading and studying, in curiosity, and a lot of being humbled by people who know more than me, by indigenous people from all different cultures, and especially by Palestinian people that I got to know more and more over the years, to really get me out of the smokescreen, out of the illusion of Zionism, out of the attachment to it as a Jewish person. To realize that yes, anti-Semitism is a real thing, and yes, Jewish safety is important, but it absolutely cannot come in the expense of mass expulsion, ethnic cleansing, and occupation of another nation. And so it's important for me to be here and share this voice, so people in the world know that Judaism has absolutely nothing to do with Zionism. That most Jewish people are against and refuse to be complicit in a brutal occupation and genocide. That resistance to capitalism and imperialist colonialism is an inherent part of Jewish culture and history. Much love, and free Palestine.
Another thing that he was saying as well, that a lot of people, sometimes you have to be discerned, because some people might cause you to react in a certain way, to trigger you to do those things, which is why you have to handle your triggers. But there's people, they do stuff in the dark to do that on purpose. Okay? Especially if they are Islamophobic. Especially if they are, so they're trying to justify their hatred, and this could be for anybody. Especially, I feel like he's talking about those who advocate for what's going on, because I know that after the ICJ rules that it's not real, that they have to stop the genocide and stuff like that, a lot of people got upset about that. And yes,
the whole idea that there's a huge Israeli left which is against the current aggression in Gaza and also believes in peaceful coexistence with the Palestinians and their right to return is a farce.
We your babies here.
Five Palestine babies.
We're looking for babies, but there is no babies left.
Just like the idea that Netanyahu's Likud party is the exception to the rule and is the only right-wing fascist party, and all the others in the opposition are very progressive or even pro-Palestinian, is not true.
If the international media is objective, it serves Hamas. If it just shows both sides, it serves Hamas.
These political parties definitely have their differences with Netanyahu when it comes to their internal policies. As far as Gaza and the Palestinians go, they are pretty much on the same page as they have always been. And it's not just the political parties and their leaders. It's the media personnel, the celebrities, and everyday Israeli civilians also believe that whatever is going on in Gaza is justified. Some of them might believe that it's a little too aggressive for their liking, like probably they would have been okay with 5,000 children being killed and not 10,
Oh, maybe I killed a girl, she was 12, but they're looking for a baby.
עזה, יא שרמוטה, עזה יא בת 1000 זונה, כושלאים עם אמא שלך, עזה יא בת זונה!
The truth is that the Israeli left is an ever-shrinking minority. In fact, when USA requested Israel to stop indiscriminately bombing Gaza and do more precision attacks, then 75% of Israelis disagreed. Even the seemingly outrightly pro-Palestinian Israelis whom you watch on social media or other news outlets still believe in Israel's right to existence and its right to defend itself against native resistance, because they themselves are squatting on foreign land and are active colonizers. From the IOF militants recording themselves joyfully bombing the civilian infrastructure in Gaza, to the political leaders spewing vile racist rhetoric, and the everyday Israeli civilians ridiculing and dehumanizing the Palestinians, the fact of the matter is that this is, unfortunately, the true face of Israel and of the majority of Israelis.
We're booming Gaza right now. I'm trying to eat my popsicle.
לכל מי ששאל למה אין לימודים בעזה, אופס, נפל לנו טיל עליכם, איזה פרסה. מה? עזה עדיין קיימת? אכפת מהיר הזה?
I am not okay with living across the border of 20 or 30,000 rapists. I am a psychotherapist and licensed clinical social worker. I do.
I leave you with this video of an Israeli activist, 𝓁𝆃DIVINE, where she explains the indoctrination and brainwashing which turns an everyday person into an extremist. She has researched extensively regarding this in Israel, and her interviews are worth checking out. And remember, it's ceasefire, then lift the siege, then end the occupation, and then free Palestine.
How do you take nice Jewish boys and girls and turn them into monstrous killers of children when they reach 18? It takes a very long, thorough, and sophisticated education to do that. And that was my question, you know. How do you do that? How come, you know? We have an organization called Breaking the Silence, where soldiers confess what they did in the West Bank. And many of these confessions, the soldiers say, I was educated to believe that whatever I do to the Palestinians will save us from another Holocaust. And only when I aimed my rifle at a little girl, I realized that I was the evil one. And then I stopped. So this education is so entrenched. It's really, you know, Richard Dawkins hated religion, and he called religion mind infection. But I think this is mind infection. Ideologies can be mind infected. And they are so infected with it that and the dehumanization of Palestinians especially is so strong that it's very hard for people, especially young people, to get rid of that and to see these people as human beings.
All right, so there's two main points going on with this UNRWA development, but it's essentially a PR coup for Israel. Check that out. So this was pretty much a PR coup, right? Because they've been trying to discredit the UN since the ICJ trial happened, before they started being challenged on the floor of the General Assembly every day. And their PR might be weak, but they toe the line. So if you want to see what their true intent is, you just look on their social media Hasbara trolls pages. The UN's war on Israel. The UN's credibility is on trial, especially through UNRWA, whose reports the court relied on. After Israel brought evidence that 12 employees participated on October 7th, the U.S. State Department announced Friday a pause in funding. And guys, they have been working on this for a long time. Look at those UN flak vests, straight out of the rack. wrapper. Never been worn before. And so this aid is going to be critical, especially since expanded military operations are winding down. And we're getting all these videos of different units leaving the strip. So the ground war is entering a different phase. There will be fewer troops. And I've been saying it for months now. You can't really effectuate a genocide with conventional weapons. You need something else. You need like forced marches, labor camps, concentration camps, or mass displacement and disease. So the ICJ ordered, all genocidal acts to stop, essentially. And then a lot of legal experts are saying now that by canceling or cutting funding to UNRWA and basically crippling it and its ability to function, basically works in violation of that. But from their thinking, if they can discredit UNRWA, they can discredit the ICJ case. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see how that would work. Because the entire premise of these accusations, the foundations for these accusations, comes from Shin Bet, the Domestic Intelligence Service of Israel, who routinely employs torture and deprivation. And they've been trying to levy these accusations since day one. It only went through now because in response to the ICJ hearing. It may be because, they needed extra time to really put the screws to some dudes. And of course, don't lose sight of the fact that no actual evidence has been produced about these employees who were fired. So this whole PR coup is just about, genocide facilitation with further famine and risk of disease. And they're trying in a really feeble way to discredit the ICJ's case. And of course, the Biden administration is being incredibly cynical about all this, so they're just backing him no matter what. We're also in too deep to withdraw now. I don't think there'll be any sort of reasonableness or compromise, and I think the situation's only going to escalate right now, potentially, because 3 U.S. service members were just killed in the base in Jordan. Cutting funding to the UN, losing 3 soldiers on an air base in Jordan, and being unable to control Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, who's trying to secede, really is testing the staying power and the teeth of the Biden administration. Very lackluster, and I'm not sure how much longer they're going to be able to have the veneer of control. Circling back, it's all about more genocide and more discrediting the UN. So, yay world.
هذه أصوات الآن قوات الاحتلال تقوم بإطلاق النار على المواطنين بعد استلامهم المساعدات الإنسانية شمال القطاع في حي الزيتون. هذه أصوات إطلاق النار. هذه هي المشاهد إطلاق النار على المواطنين أثناء استلامهم بالمساعدات الإنسانية على مقترن الكويت في حي.
There's people who got upset, obviously, from Palestinians who are already still enduring, and they're like, there's still no ceasefire. Like, what is this? So there is going to happen. Permanent ceasefire is coming, but the slow process of this, it just shows you how deep Islamophobia is, how racism is so, white supremacy is so, and it does cause a lot of harm to others, especially those who are living through it. And it's sad and really hurtful, to be honest, for those that, because they don't experience that, because they don't understand that, they feel like, well, if I'm not experiencing that, if it's not happening to me, well, then it's not my problem. That is harmful as well. That is a form of complicit, and that is violence as well. Everything that is going on in the world, you should care. We are built with empathy. So this world is programmed and conditioned in everything, in schools and everywhere, to make you not have empathy, because it doesn't operate like that. So that's why it makes this work, those who are advocate, those who have care, compassion, those who have Christ in them, okay? This is why the work is even harder. And this is why you have to put God first in everything. Prayer, as soon as you wake up. Pray over your house. Pray over your finances. Pray over your mental health. Pray over your children if you have children. Pray over any children right now. Any children right now. There's a lot of children in Gaza right now who need your prayers, who need assistance, who need people who You know, there's Mansour, like he's been disappeared since last Sunday. I've been praying to see what's going on because he was constantly on social media. He was posting every single day. Now it's just, he disappeared. And he's one of his advocacy and one of his work that he was doing, it was to sponsor children, to help kids in Gaza. All right, so it is confirmed. Mansour was abducted by the IDF. And if you go check out my social media, you look at my community, look at my community board. I put all the information there. Please sign the petition, guys. It breaks my heart because this man was so kind, was so nice. He really was working really hard to, give encouragement to everybody, tell everybody what's going on in the south of Gaza, and like. It's just pure hatred. Again, that's what he kept. Now I'm putting all the pieces together. That's what Islamophobia does. Okay? And this is why it's encouraged. This is why these people are doing this. This is why also the same thing with what's going on with pulling out the humanitarian aid. All these countries, so disappointed. I'm not surprised though. Their justification is that someone was working on October 7 for Hamas or whatever. Again, lying. This is all they do. And also, again, they feel some type of way because just hate. They don't have that in their heart. They don't have love. They don't have compassion. They lack empathy. And this is why, honestly, people in power that lack empathy should not be in leaderships, leaders and stuff like that. Ruling and taking and having power over nations, over people, countries, because at the end of the day, they're not speaking for the people, right? This is why the imperialists and capitalists, it just doesn't work. It's not beneficial for a lot of people. Also, trauma. That's part of that. That's what keeps that system toxicity going. Inducing trauma, now healing, not working on these things, And that's what Mansour was doing. He was not only dealing with his own genocide and surviving it, but he was healing people through his words, his work. I'm telling you, he was encouraging people, and also that too. Absolutely, he was able to be the voice of those children that a lot of people started to sponsor them and to help those children orphans. So you see, why is it wrong to care about people, children and stuff like that? Like, why is that wrong? Again, look at it from a spiritual perspective. We're dealing with some serious. And then these people doing satanic rituals and stuff like that, and then pretending to be Jewish. By the way, Jewish people will never do this, huh? Don't let them confuse you with that. They're using them as human shields, using their religion as a shield, but they're a Zionist, Nazi, okay? Demonic. And they're very, very heavy into satanic stuff, which is clearly shows to everybody. If you know what's going on, you've been doing this, following this for a while, you can see it. It's clear as day. It's exposed for a reason. Please sign the petition, okay? Let's try to get him back. He's a Canadian citizen, okay? And there's other families as well, Canadian, who are also stuck in Gaza as well. Where are you, Trudeau? Where's your sign of peace? Canada is supposed to be a country of peace and solidarity and like, what's going on? Time to show up, all right? Return them to Canada, all right? For real. So that too, it's like, why is it people so hateful and envious to others who are trying to help those in need, those innocent and stuff like that? Again, it comes from this very intense demonic spirit that we all have to pray to. Because at the end of the day, we're not praying over flesh and blood. We're praying, we are fighting spiritual principalities, right? And there is spiritual warfare, there's psychological warfare, okay? And then there's the mental, and then there's the people doing stuff in your energy, thinking that they're not gonna get caught. This is why they hate people who do readings. This is why they hate people who do tarot readings. those who have their religious spirit, because their energy always come out. Their truth, what they do in the dark, they don't want people to find out, comes out in readings. And those who are not even doing readings, even prophets, even seers. Like a lot of us, we have multiple gifts. We have the Tower seers, we have the prophecy, we have all the clairs. And we have to deal with that. We have to constantly deal with people like this. Because this is another thing that we were talking to me in spirit. Like, if you have nothing to hide, if you have integrity and honesty, then you don't have nothing to worry about. You don't have to worry about people knowing your secrets, knowing about your stuff, unless you have something to hide, unless your actions say otherwise, right? This is what liars and manipulators do.
If I say free Palestine, but you don't lose yours when you ask for a list of individuals who signed a letter against the genocide of Palestinians so that you can discriminate against them when they're applying for a job. The program director of the University of Ottawa dermatology program was noted here to be asking for a list of names of individuals who have signed a letter against the genocide of Palestinians and against the targeting of healthcare workers there, so that they can look into it as a program director. Like, actually saying that is why they want to look into it, because they are a program director. In case you're not aware, right now is CARMS, a process where fourth-year medical students across Canada apply for their residency programs and basically start their flourishing lives after 8 minimum grueling years of school. What this indicates is I want to know their names so that I can be in charge of their futures and so that I can discriminate against them in a job that they have been working towards for a large chunk of their lives. 𓁧𓆃DIVINE, who I've talked about many times on my page, has made the school aware. He made University of Ottawa aware, and many other individuals made U Ottawa aware, and they did nothing. They are trying to destroy the futures of 271 medical students. Only when this was taken public did the University of Ottawa say, let's actually address it. So the Faculty of Medicine has addressed it. They received the concerns. They basically said that they're going to have a new selection committee that's independent of that individual, of that program director, and that program director has voluntarily stepped down from that process. Do you all remember Yipeng? Do you remember my colleague who's in residency who was suspended for literally just sharing content that was pro-Palestinian liberation, that was against their occupation, against their genocide? He was suspended like that. And this individual can just step down voluntarily with no repercussions. All of us are aware that this Twitter response is very much insufficient. And thought it said, why on earth was Dr. Kirshen allowed to voluntarily recuse herself from the process? Why wasn't she immediately terminated? Is she seriously supposed to preside over the academic future of residents who are now admitted with this supposedly fair process? Does U Ottawa believe that Dr. Kirshen is the only person engaging in this process? She is part of a larger effort to suppress doctors who advocate for human rights and against genocide. And UO is actively choosing not to protect the best learners through faculty's actions and omissions. The University of Ottawa knew. They knew, and they chose not to do anything until people went public. What does that indicate to you? Time and time again, my colleagues are getting suspended and faced with expulsion for uttering the words Free Palestine. But faculty and supervisors can target those individuals publicly in smear campaigns like Dr. Friedhoff did against Dr. Yipeng, or target them through a list of names on a literal letter that was against genocide, and nothing happens to them. We will never forget the targeting that happened against anyone and everyone who is pro-Palestine. And we will never forget the institutions that did nothing about that did nothing to protect us, and that continue to uphold the people who target us and discriminate against us and get us suspended. We will never forget what you've done.
Let's talk about why these people in the US are getting fired or expelled for expressing solidarity with Palestine.
I was told that I was being put on leave because of my email signature.
They terminated me. What was the bigger surprise is they went ahead and expelled my son from 10th grade, who was not involved in anything.
I posted, I'm not seeing a lot about the ongoing genocide on my LinkedIn feeds. It was taken down. I got another call from HR saying that I had been terminated effective immediately without severance.
These are just a few examples from hundreds of cases across industries in the US of people being disciplined by their workplaces for expressing Palestinian solidarity.
I recognize that We're not free in this country. I can't say that Palestine will be free and keep my job.
The Council on American Islamic Relations recorded more than 1,000 anti-Arab and Muslim bias cases in just 1 month since October 7th, which it says is an unprecedented rise in incidents. Meanwhile, those expressing pro-Israel sentiments and speech largely face no actions. I talked to an attorney about free speech implications and legal advice that we'll get into in a bit.
To punish anyone for caring about basic human rights and dignity is just a failure of morality in the West.
But first, here's the pattern that's emerging from these cases. Institutions have said that the content regarding Palestine were hateful or inciting violence when punishing the employee. Maha Almasri was a math tutor at Pinecrest, a private school in Florida. As a Palestinian American, she posted about Gaza on her private social media account, posts that got her fired and her son expelled.
Well, I was posting, just shedding light on the humanitarian crisis that was happening in Gaza.
Nothing was hateful about her posts. I don't know how colleges are gonna look at this.
Another teacher at a public school in Maryland was put on leave for her email signature.
It genuinely boggles my mind how calling for freedom and basic human rights can be hateful.
It turns out other teachers in Maryland have also used politicized slogans in their email signatures. But Hajar El-Hagan says she was singled out.
And it wasn't on my email address that I talked to parents or students on.
And a management consultant in Chicago was fired for posting something similar on her LinkedIn.
It's not calling to kill anyone. It really is just speaking to and centering Palestine. They did not say that I had violated any policy. They said that I had violated their values.
Rauda Fawez, an attorney at CARE, says the U.S. government's support for Israel trickles down to employers across all industries.
The same is not happening to our allies who of different backgrounds. When push comes to shove, we are once again on the front lines of fighting for our basic rights.
These corporations want to dominate all parts of our lives. Also just maintaining, their good reputation, their good image, because they benefit from the structures that are in place today.
And when it comes to Palestine, Rauda says there seems to be an exception to free speech rights.
It violates anti-discrimination laws. In the public sector, it violates free speech rights.
With more institutions cracking down on speech regarding Palestine, it's important to know your rights.
If you are an employee of a public institution, you have free speech rights as a private citizen. Just make sure you are doing it outside of work hours. You are an employee of a private company. Make sure that you're aware of the social media policy. This part is not legal advice. I encourage people to think about the kind of workplace that they want to be in. Think about, do you want to continue working at a place that wants you not to advocate on behalf of human rights in your private capacity?
And despite facing negative consequences, everyone I spoke to said that they were met with overwhelming support outside of their workplaces and that they don't regret speaking out on Gaza.
This doesn't discourage me, because I'm inspired by the fearlessness and the hardiness of the Palestinians. They're still fighting and they have nothing left.
And speaking up is, for me, it's been like the first step towards liberation. There is no liberation without Palestinian liberation.
Nothing changes the fact, unfortunately, that the crisis is going on.
The fact that people's jobs are being targeted, that their social media is being hunted down, it truly is like a last-ditch effort to try to shift the tide. If your pin or your social media post didn't matter, we wouldn't come after it, but it does.
They have to constantly be lying. This is their energy. They always have to lie because their lies always comes out. Now, those who are truthful with integrity, you don't know about that energy. You don't care that people talk about you. You don't care because you are living in your truth. And that's what pisses a lot of people who are not in their truth, who are not living in their truth, who are lying and deceiving. At the end of the day, they're doing it to themselves because eventually people will see right through them. Eventually people find out. God will show to people, the right people, what those people are doing behind the scene. A lot of you're dealing with a lot of karmics who don't have a life for real. And they're so focused on stalking you, monitoring, watching you. Like you see, like you ask them, like, what do they do outside of like their work-related life? And then you see that there's nothing for them. Why? Because they're constantly monitoring, watching you. Some of them, they spend money to cause you harm, to sabotage you, to not be better or higher than them. So a lot of you, if you're advocating for not just the people who are, defending those who are dealing with Islamophobia, because this is also a form of trauma. Those who are dealing with some type of poverty or starvation, famine, like what's happening in Palestine is induced, It's not like, oh, it's famine caused no, that's part of the genocide, right? And then literally the leaking of that guy, like, oh, how can we make Israel not look like they did war crimes? Like, what? That definitely was God, because it was not like leaked just like that. That guy was, whoa, yo, that's God. He always does that. He will always show the truth to you guys. You just have to pay attention. And then pay attention to when the truth comes out, especially if in readings or a seer, a prophet, or anybody, and you see that people get some type of way, react towards it, feel some type of way, trying to attack you, defamation of character and all of that. Watch that energy. They're telling on themselves. They always do. Liars always tell on themselves. And they're always trying to find faults and bad and everything on other people, but they're always righteous, right? There's nothing, they never do anything wrong, right? Being honest and having integrity is a rare quality. And yes, people can change. People can, through actions though. If they were a liar and they didn't have an integrity, they have to show through actions how to do that. Everyone has the capability to self-taught themselves, to decolonize themselves, to not make excuses anymore, take responsibility, accountability for their wrongdoings, okay? And yes, you have to also recognize and have that discernment, and this is why it's good to have that relationship with God and pray and have a higher connection with higher realms, because there's a lot of deceitful energy in this planet and people, and you cannot trust everybody. There's people you can trust, those who, defend you behind your back, okay? But then there's others that, they just trash you, and then they act like they're, your friend or whatever, nice with you, okay? So I'm just passing this lesson for some of you, okay? And always pray for discernment, okay? Discernment is key. Discernment is like I don't know, like the food for intuition, It's like the spiritual food, So let God give you that discernment, okay? And then don't be surprised when sometimes it's not what you want to hear, sometimes it's not what you want to see, but it's what you need to see and hear during that time, at that moment. And trust Him, trust God, have faith that He got you, okay? I don't know how God put me with this father today, but he really gave me good pointers, and now I'm passing it to you, okay? Islamophobia is a form of hate, okay? And it's represented, manifested in multiple ways, especially people not talking about what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Congo, Sudan, you know what I'm saying? Or Palestine, right? And then being upset when finally Palestine is getting their justice, That's why I was like, that energy is weird for me. I was like, oh, that's weird. It's like, yeah, that's Islamophobia. That's why it needs to be eradicated. That's why we need decolonization. And this also goes for very Christy people. You're Christian, your ministry, you're constantly prophesying and blah, 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 but you can't talk about your brothers and sisters right now. Oh, because they're not in the same religion as you, they're not Christian as you. Doesn't matter. Religion is just there as a tool, and it's there to divide, but you can learn from each of them. And I think that's also part of decolonization as well. When you are able to take your own discernment, your own sovereignty, and you're able to decolonize, accept racism that it exists, okay? Not because you're not going through it, And also that too is like learn from other people who have been learning this and have worked on this. Like I know a lot of white people who are like, that's racist. I'm gonna work on that. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't try to be like colonizers. That doesn't benefit my brothers and sisters. You know what I'm saying? Having that compassion, taking their power back and sovereignty. So if they're able to do it, I'm sure all the people can, right? Right? But then some people just don't want to do it. They don't feel like doing it. They're like, well, you know, yeah, that's when they go for the enemy. The enemy is controlling them already. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of you pray for others, okay? Pray for your enemies. Wish them well. You know, just like God, like Jesus said, shut up and leave, you know? But he's talking not about the person. He's talking about the spirit in them. So a lot of you, God has given you that authority. So when you see someone with Islamophobia, racism, because that's demonic, okay? I talk about this a lot of time. Narcissism, fascism, sadists, psychopaths, you know? You have the authority. Pray for them. That's it. And let it go and let God, you know? I love you guys. I hope this helps. See you next time.